All stand and remain standing until the conclusion of the reading of the proclamation. Ladies and gentlemen, the proclamation. All persons having any business before this honourable court now draw nigh, give your attendance, and you shall be heard. God save the Queen.
Thank you.
Admissions ceremony. Michael Edward Absol. Alexander Peter Barry.
May it please the court, I move that Alexander Peter Barry be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Alexander Peter Barry be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Leslie Chen.
May it please the court, I move that Leslie Chen be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Let Leslie Chen be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Marianne Deda.
May it please the court, I move that Marianne Deda be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Marianne Deda be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Stephanie Grace Kerr.
May it please the court, I move that Stephanie Grace Kerr be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Stephanie Grace Kerr be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Dina Lander.
May it please the court, I move that Dina Lander be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Dina Lander be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Merrin Layla Lloyd.
May it please the court, I move that Merrin Layla Lloyd be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Merrin Layla Lloyd be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Emily Rose McLennan.
May it please the court, I move that Emily Rose McLennan be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Emily Rose McLennan be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Sarah Elise Mooney.
May it please the court, I move that Sarah Elise Mooney be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Sarah Elise Mooney be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Jonathan George Nassif.
May it please the court, I move that Jonathan George Nassif be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Jonathan George Nassif be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Sophie Gladys Ray.
May it please the court, I move that Sophie Gladys Ray be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Sophie Gladys Ray be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Kate Marie Taylor.
May it please the court, I move that Kate Marie Taylor be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Kate Marie Taylor be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Chloe Victoria Wilkinson.
May it please the court, I move that Chloe Victoria Wilkinson be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Chloe Victoria Wilkinson be admitted as a lawyer of this court. It will be necessary for the purposes of an oath or an affirmation that all those being admitted today stand up but remain in their current places. Please stand up.
Michael Edward Absol. Alexander Peter Barry. Leslie Chen. Marianne Deda. Stephanie Grace Kerr. Dina Lander. Merrin Layla Lloyd. Emily Rose McLennan. Sarah Elise Mooney. Jonathan George Nassif. Sophie Gladys Ray. Kate Marie Taylor. Chloe Victoria Wilkinson. Do you severally swear or declare and affirm that you will truly and honestly conduct yourselves in the practice of a lawyer of the Supreme Court of New South Wales, and that you will faithfully serve as such in the administration of the laws and usages of this state according to the best of your knowledge, skill, and ability. Would you please say, "So help me God," or "I do"?
Now that the formal part of the proceedings has ended, I would like to warmly welcome you to the Supreme Court of New South Wales. I'm the President of the Court of Appeal. My role is to preside on civil appeals in the Supreme Court and to deputise for the Chief Justice when he's unable to sit. And the Chief Justice regrets that he's not able to sit at this ceremony, but has asked me to pass on his congratulations and good wishes to you all. Present with me on the bench today are two of the Court's most senior and experienced judges, Justice White, to my right, who is a judge of the Court of Appeal and formerly a judge of the Equity Division, and Justice Stevenson to my left, who is a judge of the Equity Division and is one of a number of specialist judges of the Court who sit in the Court's highly regarded commercial list. Together we constitute the Court that has, in the exercise of its jurisdiction, admitted you to practice. As we gather here this afternoon, I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. We recognise the long-standing and enduring customs and traditions of Australia's First Nations people and acknowledge with deep regret the role our legal system has sometimes played in perpetrating and not exposing many injustices against Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. To all of the new lawyers here today, newly admitted lawyers, welcome to the legal profession. This afternoon and today is one for celebration. You've all worked, we know, extremely hard to get here through caffeine-fuelled nights, obscure problem questions, reading countless wafer-thin pages of textbooks and more cases than you can hope to remember, some of which have probably been written by my colleagues to my left and right. Rest assured, for those of you with what's called a bibliophobia, that's to say a fear of running out of reading material, as lawyers that fear will never materialise. You have entered the world of eggshell skulls, encountered the mysterious reasonable person and have understood that the Constitution consists of much more than the vibe of the thing. Hopefully, though, you have come to appreciate that all the different subjects you have studied and the principles you have learnt provide the essential framework in which our society is designed to function in a civilised and orderly manner. The fabric of our society is underpinned by the rule of law. That's not a cant phrase, but it is a fundamental truth. In becoming a lawyer, you have today joined a centuries-old profession with ancient origins. The custom in which you have participated of advocates swearing an admission oath dates back to the 12th century. And this court first admitted lawyers to practice in 1824, and by 1830 the names of lawyers were entered onto rolls in this state, just as your names will be. You have now become part of this tradition almost 200 years later in this state. Perhaps for some of you, or your family and friends, that may be how long it feels like you've been studying. But on that note, I am also pleased to welcome those of you here today or those watching on the live stream who have supported the newly admitted lawyers, their family, friends, colleagues, relations, parents, children, brothers and sisters. For many of you, the newly admitted lawyers, the support of your families and friends has no doubt been invaluable. They've no doubt been on the receiving end of your attempted cross-examination, your skills of argument and the like, and they should be proud of you and also be thanked for their great support. The oath or affirmation which has been made today by each of the newly admitted lawyers is a serious one and deserves solemn regard. Whether you work in private practice, in the public sector, at the bar, in a community legal centre, or in an entirely different field, You should be known for your honesty, your integrity, and your commitment to justice. It is in acknowledgement of this weighty responsibility that we observe today's unique formalities, including the moving of the newly admitted lawyers by admitted lawyers, the swearing of oaths or the making of affirmations, and even our unusual ceremonial robes. For those in the court here today, you can observe on the walls portraits of former Chief Justices of this court wearing, in some cases, the very same robes we still wear for formal ceremonies such as this. We do so not for the purposes of fancy dress, but in symbolic recognition of the importance of the continuity of the rule of law in this state and in this country. However, although we mark this ceremony with the formalities and traditions to which I've referred, not everything in the legal profession remains unchanging. You'll be unsurprised to hear that last year, as with the rest of the community, we had to adapt a great deal. COVID-19 meant a rapid shift to increased use of virtual courtroom setups and extended use of technology to ensure access to justice continued in the midst of a pandemic. That was very important because the rule of law and the administration of justice cannot be suspended, and indeed it was not. There were challenges to overcome in terms of open justice, effective communication and fairness to participants. But for all the challenges that were faced, the impetus is greater than ever before to prioritise flexibility and accessibility to the courts. Better use of technology and increased working from home arrangements have had and will continue to have profound implications for the reach of our legal system, how it interacts with many people, including those in rural or remote areas, those with a disability, medical conditions or carers' responsibilities. As the newest members of the profession, you, the newly admitted lawyers, are at the forefront of innovation in the law and have a unique opportunity to see through changes so that justice is done openly and equitably. There are, of course, other changes that deserve mention and attention. When we think of the diversity of the legal profession, we encounter a duality that we have come very far on the one hand, whilst on the other hand, much still needs to be done and there is no room for complacency. Although women were originally not permitted to practice the legal profession, something we would think of as unthinkable and wholly unacceptable today, since 2018, women have made up more than half of all of the solicitors with a practising certificate in New South Wales and currently make up 63% of the solicitors of this state under the age of 30. Women occupy many of the most senior positions in the law in Australia, including, of course, the Chief Justice of Australia. My predecessor as President of the Court of Appeal was the Honourable Margaret Beasley, ACQC, now the Governor of New South Wales, and the current President of the Law Society of New South Wales is Ms Juliana Warner. However, with all of those achievements, women still continue to face challenges of representation, including amongst the judges and amongst barristers in speaking roles before appellate courts. But it is very pleasing to see that, for example, the local court of New South Wales has almost achieved gender parity among the magistracy, and that much of the senior representation in the Court of Criminal Appeal in this state is by extremely talented female advocates, both on the prosecution side and the defence side. Of course, there are other notable diversity issues and concerns that must be faced head-on. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and people from diverse cultural backgrounds continue to be underrepresented in the legal profession and particularly within the judiciary. We must also be alert to barriers to the profession for people from less privileged backgrounds. The law should not be a profession for the wealthy, and the idea that students may be dissuaded from studying law by the cost of a law degree, which this year has increased again, or because of other systemic issues, is troubling. Not just this, but we will only achieve a truly diverse profession when barriers to advancement are broken down and people from different backgrounds are properly supported in a collegiate and an inclusive environment free from harassment and discrimination. That having been said, however, it can be said with some confidence that much of the practice of law is highly meritocratic. People rise up from modest backgrounds to the highest ranks of the judiciary, the bar and the solicitor's practice. That's how it should be, and to a large extent how it is. But we must be vigilant to ensure that that is and remains the case. Those kinds of issues are fundamental to a just and excellent legal system and to the legitimacy of the rule of law. You, the newly admitted lawyers, are in a unique position because you are entering the profession at a time when, perhaps more than ever, your words and actions are having a profound impact for good. You are being heard and taken seriously when you agitate to correct injustices, whether it be speaking out about unsustainable work cultures, sexual harassment or bullying within the profession, unfair laws, or systemic failings affecting our society's most vulnerable. I urge you to continue to speak up for the things that matter. That is what passionate advocacy by passionate, committed and fearless lawyers is about. You are the future of the profession and will steer the direction it takes. Now, as a lawyer, you will also need to make difficult ethical decisions at times. With regards to our personal characteristics, lawyers are sometimes the butt of jokes and have been for centuries. Some would say that there are, of course, only a handful of lawyer jokes, the rest are true stories. But jokes of that kind aside, it's important that you must use the tools you have developed while studying to think critically and not to compromise on your fundamental duties to the court and to the administration of justice. You are expected to and will be held to the highest of ethical standards. We make no apology for that, and you should take pride in your position as a member of a profession which insists on that expectation and those high values. Now that you are lawyers, you can get paid to argue instead of just arguing for free. But of course, there's a lot more to it than that. You will become an advisor, a problem solver, a mediator and an advocate for the marginalised, or those in difficult personal circumstances, whether they be with the criminal law, whether they be in a family law context, whether they be as a result of catastrophic injury, or whether they be commercial or financial. As you go about your day-to-day work, remember that you're not merely dealing with the law in a vacuum, but with real people who have engaged you for your assistance because they are in difficulty and need clear and courageous guidance. For this reason, you must strive to deliver legal services competently and fearlessly with courtesy and integrity. And those last two precepts, courtesy and integrity, also apply to how you deal with your opponents. Whether you become a solicitor or a barrister, you are all members of the one profession and all owe ethical duties to the court and the administration of justice in this state. The practice of the law can be stressful and demanding enough without personal animus and antagonism between practitioners adding to the burden. One venerable law firm began a simple practice about 15 years ago of commencing all their correspondence with other firms of solicitors with the simple phrase, "Dear colleagues." That was a small but salutary initiative. Nobody ever went backwards by being polite and civil, and I would suggest that you should all regard courtesy in your dealings with other lawyers as a component of your membership of the profession. Now, for those of you who will practice law, and I assume that most of you will, having made the effort to get here today, the way you communicate information to others will also have profound consequences for access to justice. For non-lawyers, law is often incomprehensible, and one of your roles as a lawyer will be to make accessible the law to others, sometimes by deciphering legal complexities, other times through your knowledge of the law being able to identify the critical facts that matter in any given dispute. Most cases are about disputes over the facts, not the law. But to realise what facts matter, you must know the law and the legal framework to make that analysis. Your task is not just to understand the law, but to convey in a clear way to your clients what their rights are and how their interests are affected. The best advocates, in my experience, make their points simply and clearly. Often, less is more. I also want to speak briefly to you about failure. It would not be surprising if there were quite a few high or overachievers and perfectionists in the room today. The law tends to attract such people. Even so, at various points in your career, you will make mistakes. We all have. Some mistakes will be minor, some more serious. But when you do make mistakes, your commitment to honesty, integrity and the administration of justice means that you must take responsibility, correct what you can and learn from those errors. You must fail at times in order to grow. What is important is that you try not to make the same mistake twice. One mistake you should never make is to give your clients the advice they want to hear. You do neither yourself nor your client any favours by doing so. Justice Gageler, before he was a High Court judge, once said, and I quote, "You must be prepared to give the same answer to the same question for the same reasons, no matter who asks the question or for what purpose or in what context the asking may occur." That observation is foundational to upholding the rule of law. It is a very good practical guide to remember how you should conduct yourself in the advice you give. Finally, I want to emphasise that your mental health is extremely important, a reality that for many, many years in the past has not been appropriately recognised. It may sound unusual for me to mention that at a ceremony of this kind, but the law is not only a very demanding profession, it is of course not everything. You must strive to have a balanced life to keep not only your mental health in check, but everything in perspective. A lawyer who is engaged in his or her broader society, has interests beyond the law, is a better lawyer and a better advisor than someone who is not. There will be times when you may feel overwhelmed, burnt out or distressed. If you do, don't be afraid to seek professional help or to take a step back when you need to. But also remember this, the law is an extremely collegiate profession. Collegiality is there in law firms, it's there in chambers for barristers, it's there in the Law Society of New South Wales and its committees, it's there in the Bar Association of New South Wales. So remember, you're not alone, you're a member of a collegiate profession full of very good people who will look out for you. And so, on behalf of the Chief Justice and all of the judges of the Supreme Court and my colleagues on the bench with me here this afternoon, let me once again congratulate you all on your admission. I wish you well for your careers and have a nice weekend. The court will now adjourn.
All stand. This honourable court is now adjourned. God save the Queen.